in this session today, our speakers are going to be talking through different strategies that they've implemented to maximize revenue while accounting for any risks that might come up in that process of exploring these new areas. That can be regulation, that can be unforeseen issues with payment processing or fraudulent actors or anything that might happen. So there's going to be a lot of different topics in this one. We've got a whole wide range of panelists. We've got Jason Anastasinis from TravelStation. He's the CEO and founder. They're an OTA that we've been seeing a lot of action on at Guesty in the past couple of years. So we'll be very interested to hear from what it's been like on his side. And then on the property management side of things, we have two PMs joining us. We have Kaufman, the CEO of Sojourn, as well as Phil Cooper, the founder and visionary behind Ohana Homes. You might recognize him from the For the Love of Hosting video yesterday, who had the choice to break up a wedding and didn't. So really excited to hear Phil's take on risk because he has a lot of good experience with that. The whole panel is going to be moderated by my good friend Taylor Murphy. She's also her Guest of All debut. She's one of our enterprise customer success managers, so she's on the front lines when our customers are coming to us, facing these new risks and taking them head on. So please, everyone, welcome to the stage our panelists for today.
Hi, everyone. Welcome in. I apologize in advance. I have been talking with all of you and my voice is kind of going a little bit, so bear with me. But welcome in day two. We are so excited to have you here. Not to brag, but if you were here for the opening night party and you managed to get your cards read by the tarot lady with the mezcal, she did tell me that my card said this was going to be the best panel, so I'm just going off of what the card said. But if there is one thing that this conference has taught me is that with life and in business, the best way to maximize your experience is to make sure that you are diversifying, whether it's food, culture, revenue. You have to do that in order to be successful. And so what we're going to dive into today is taking some of the incredible experience that these panelists have and going through that. So like Keegan said, I'm an enterprise customer success manager here at Guesty. I've been at Guesty for 3.5 years, which in the tech world is basically like 30 years. It's basically like dog years, right? So I'm so excited. I've got a really in-depth personal view. I've got to work with countless property managers over my time here, and I've gotten to learn a lot, and I'm really excited to dive in with you guys, talking about how we're maximizing revenue and reducing risk through diversification in those emerging markets. So we're going to dig in about how operators are expanding into new stay types, experimenting with fresh revenue streams, and navigating everything from new regulations, which I know we're all feeling, as well as guest behavior shifts. So I would love to allow you guys open up the floor to introduce yourselves. Do you want to kick it off?
Yeah, so Phil from New Zealand. Obviously, we're the first people to see the sun, so by the time you guys get to see it, it's already been used. But apart from that, look, we've got 160-odd properties in New Zealand, across New Zealand, and been a family business for, family business. Ohana is a family name, and yeah. And
you have a really interesting story about how your business name came to be, right?
Yeah, so I was dealt a hand. I was 29 years of age, and I was dealt a hand and left with 6 children under the age of 10. So I was a single dad with 6 children, and I used to play, to keep them occupied, the Leo and Stitch movie, which was Ohana means family, and family means no one gets left behind. Mm-hmm. So that was, being a single dad for these kids, that was our motto as a family. So when we first, years later, when we first got our house, we named it Ohana, and then go 35 years later, when we started a little cottage, one-bedroom cottage 7 years ago, it was natural. And I think for us, the whole Ohana brand is about creating a family experience because Amazing. It comes from who we are.
Exactly, it's connecting with the humans that you're hosting, the people that you're hosting, and really getting that personal touch on thing. I think that's absolutely amazing. Okay, let's go with Ms. Dunzi here.
I'm Kaufman. I am the CEO and co-founder of Sojourn. We started in DC, which is obviously a very urban market, and started doing hybrid, which is both short-term and mid-term in that market. During COVID, actually, we expanded into Norfolk, which is a secondary market, but also is sort of contiguous with Virginia Beach and Sandbridge. So that pushed us into a more traditional vacation rental. And then in May of this year, we purchased a small property management company in Outer Banks, which is as vacation rental as it gets. So we are very diversified in terms of location, and our inventory is everything from like a micro studio in DC to a 8-bedroom house in the Outer Banks.
Yeah, you really are the queen of diversified markets.
Yes.
You're perfect having in here. Okay, let's go ahead with Jason.
Hello, I'm CEO and founder of TravelStation. It's a company that we established back in 2012. We are all about like professional property managers and quality like centric properties. We have more than 120,000 properties and a growing portfolio all over the world, mainly US, UK, Southern of Europe. Our kind of approach and philosophy is about that we want like to have a very good product, very good collection of properties all over the world. And through that, we have like always invested in creating quality assurance protocols. We have now we're now releasing soon like tech-enabled like standards. So we would like to present more like in the next couple of weeks. And we have an expanded network of B2B buyers like travel agents, tour operators. They trust our inventory, and we are able like to become one of the biggest platforms within Guesty channels in terms of production of bookings through different countries.
Amazing, amazing. Okay, so now that we've got the stage set, we are going to be diving in. Like what Keegan was saying, this is a little bit of a beast of a topic, right? So we had so many different ideas when we were discussing this originally, and so many ideas. And so I want to throw you guys what might be the most difficult question of the day, which is how do you define in your business, how do you define maximizing revenue while reducing risk in today's volatile short-term rental industry?
Well, I think how we did it was at the start was we were property owners first, and I think we learned how to be owning the property, and then we were go into management, and then we would do the arbitrage model. So we learned to diversify. So we weren't just property managers; we owned, and that's how we've been in any area we go and we would buy property first, then we would manage properties, and we'll then be a local because we already own the property. So I think that's kind of helped us grow because we're not just a property management company, we are owners as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, what's interesting, we've done the exact opposite. Sojourn does not own anything. Nicole, my partner, and I maybe individually own, and I did start because I owned a building, but we are purely property managers, and so our obligation is really to our owners and to generate revenue.
Absolutely. Jason?
So I speak in terms of as on the shoes of a property manager on that kind of question. For me, is how you can basically create actionable KPIs, revenue diversification or reducing risk comes down to numbers and KPIs. So for me, it's a very good way to approach this kind of this kind of need of applying this diversification is you can have KPI about revenue produced versus the channels that produce that. You can have revenue unit per operation unit that you have this ratio, or how much scalable is your business, where basically how much of your growth in terms of unit or inventory, how much drive the OPEX. So I think all of this translates to diversifying revenue, diversifying in risk, reducing risk. But you need to close monitor that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that holistic approach. And when we were in conversation about this, you had previously mentioned, we were talking about with OTAs still obviously dominant, but increasingly restrictive. Why would you say that relying on just one revenue stream in that way is risky, Jason?
So for me, OTAs is not the only demon at this point, for property managers all over the world. So we can focus on how much restrictive they are, how much dependent, like the property manager, on the OTAs. But there are other forces that they're coming and jumping into this market because it becomes much more institutional, it becomes much more bigger, and a very like recognizable accommodation sector. So for me, like the real estate force, which is basically you have the property owner advertising his property on the old traditional like vacation rental like kind of industry, you have now real estate investment firms, funds, like that they're producing like inventory for kind of any accommodation type. From long-term to short-term, they basically provide a one kind of asset that can basically serve all types of lettings. That's one force. Then you have the hotels that they're approaching as well, like in terms of the offering, the accommodation type of the short-term rentals of the property manager. So it's not only one like thing that you have to focus on, diversify. You need to also like to look on these kind of things. So as a property manager, you need to understand where you have to build your operations, your like inventory, your technology, your teams around these kind of different changes that the market goes now.
Yeah, absolutely. And you touched on one thing in there, talking about like the real estate market and diversifying the types of stays that you're having lengthwise, and that is where you have a ton of experience, Dunzi. And so when we were talking about this, we were really getting into the regulatory gray areas when it comes to short-term versus 30-plus stays. We're obviously seeing a lot of different areas implementing different regulations. It's changing by cities, by county. And so what is one of the real challenges that you've seen property managers face when making that shift and maybe trying to break into doing midterm to longer stays when they've been more accustomed to doing short-term stays traditionally?
Yeah, I mean, it really, I always qualify this because it really depends on your market.
Absolutely.
So I'll just say we are in Washington, D.C., which is a very, very regulated market. They have regulated short-term stays for quite a while now, but also the landlord-tenant relationship is very, very regulated and very, very tenant-friendly. And there's lots of obligations on the owner from the moment that you form a contractual relationship with your guests. So basically, I would say there actually is no gray area. Under 30 days, you are in a transient relationship. Once you pass that 30-day mark, you are in a landlord-tenant relationship. So if you're in a jurisdiction where it's not regulated, you know, you can very easily grab those guests from anywhere and just, perhaps you don't distinguish. But our company, from its inception, we basically created two different tracks. We have like a leasing department. We have, you know, they do merge, obviously, but the more diversified you are, the more complicated your structure ends up being. And this is not an area, and I would tell you that I am a lawyer by training, so this is not an area where you can really just kind of jump in if you are in a regulated market.
Absolutely.
So.
Absolutely, yeah. And so when you're going into those different types of stays, it's opening you up to a different type of customer, right? A different type of guest who's going to be coming to stay with you. And so when we were talking, I know that you were mentioning that you had described how you recognized where property managers were leaving money on the table in a lot of instances, and that you've since established a number of different unique revenue sources with your business. Can you share what some of those are and that story and how those kind of evolved?
Well, I think for us, being a family-run business, we also looked at the areas around New Zealand which were changing regulations. So we understood that we needed to move our portfolio into areas which were more tourist-oriented, which were never going to be regulated because they were. But then the other thing we did was we maximized our revenue because the first thing we did was we created our own laundromat. So we became self-sufficient, and what we've learned is that our revenue that has been left on the table was by having your own linen instead of hiring linen, and also we have our own maintenance construction crew in every area. So that way there, when there is a damage and a claim put in, we are not paying and outsourcing that. So everything in our organisation is maintained. So we're getting the margins on everything.
Absolutely.
So that's also allowed us to be more profitable. For example, our linen hire company probably makes more money than the management company. So that's been probably one of our greatest things that we've done. We've done that in every area. And I think then what we have done just recently with Guesty Shield, and I'll give a plug for them, right? you owe me, guys, right? But Guesty Shield, so we were leaving so much revenue on the table before that, because as you know, as a host, everyone's afraid of the retaliation reviews, right? The guest breaks the chair, so you don't want to send them and say, hey guys, you broke the vase, right? Because
I see the nods in the audience of everyone going, yes, we've experienced.
It's going to piss them off, so suddenly that 5-star it's not a 5-star anymore.
Yep.
And look, even though Airbnb have this policy where, well, it's a retaliation review, look, it still doesn't fix. So what we've done is, with Guesty Shield, we've now got our own claims department, okay? So all they do is use Guesty Shield. It's a damage waiver that is paid by the guest, $25, right? And then we able to, and the good thing about it, it also helps us to get new clients, because we can go to the client that's got a $5 million property and say, hey guys, don't worry about it. We've got you covered, right?
Yep.
And I think that's kind of like where it is. Whereas, you know, a claims department now would do probably $15,000 in claims a month.
That's incredible. And with those different types of listings, from the $5 million homes
Yeah.
all the way down to, the lesser value properties,
Yeah.
You're able to customize the level of coverage that you have on that. And
Our
so-
portfolio is probably the higher end
Yeah,
portfolio. So we, like you've got $2 or $3 million home by lakes and stuff like that. So you are appealing to a different market. So you have to have those coverages to make the client feel comfortable.
Absolutely, and you're able to remove the guest from kind of that back and forth entirely, and so you're not having to go, you broke the chair, I didn't break the chair, you broke the chair.
Or for example, I'm a father of young children, so you'd go to the property and you'd say, oh my, don't touch that vase, you know what I mean? So you're all paranoid, but then when the kid breaks the vase, you go on the line saying, I'm sorry, my daughter accidentally broke the vase. So we can say, don't worry about it, you're covered.
Exactly.
Don't even worry about it. We don't even have to send them a thing saying it's $45. We just put the claim in through Guesty Shield and they don't even know about it.
You're the hero, exactly.
Well, I just wanted to add 2 things to that, which is we also have an in-house maintenance team. And as property managers, before we went out and did that, we looked at it, and it's actually like more cost effective. It's very profitable for us, but it's also more cost effective for our owners than having to bring in a third party. You also get to control the guest experience, because it's very difficult, like if somebody's toilet isn't working, to manage, and you say, well, somebody's going to be there between 1 and 3, and you can't control that experience unless you control the person who's going to attend at the property.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and another area that we have seen quite profitable is when we're onboarding, we help with the furnishings and decor, and Host GPO has been great for that. And then our owners get the benefit of the discount and things like that. But those are 2 areas as property managers where I think you can really leverage revenue.
Yeah, it's incredible to get to see how you guys have kind of created your own little self-sustaining ecosystem for your business, where you're able to rely on yourself and set the standards for what it is that you're allowing to work alongside your business, because you're also creating those other subsidiaries.
As you said, that guest client's experience, we have our own interior designer, so perfect.
Yeah.
So when we can go there, and it's all those little details that they love. The fact of, okay, we'll take care of your property, but we'll set it up so that it's amazing. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah. And so that's actually perfect segue into, so that's what's helping to really establish your brand, right? That's the Sojourn experience. And so how important is it when you are, how important is it to recognize a brand beyond just listings, and when it comes to actually de-risking your business and making it to where it's something that a guest trusts and they know what they're getting when they come and they stay at one of your properties?
Well, it's funny because this is another ancillary benefit to the maintenance team, which is we got vans and we wrapped them with our logo and our color. And so, our office, we have a great window with our logo on it, and we're all on Capitol Hill. And so driving around DC, people see the van, so you become like a known entity. So in terms of de-risking, I would say that we then become very local in our market, and people know us. So we obviously have quite a transient market ourselves, but so people are coming in and out, and they are calling us directly. So it helps, your brand obviously helps with direct bookings and things like that.
Like what Phil was saying, with you're a part of the community.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
it's they know you and they trust you. Yeah, that's amazing. So we have seen, obviously, pandemic-driven remote work surges, weather-driven demand spikes. How, and this comes in a lot with your transient market, where you've got a lot of people coming in, not just for remote work, but just where your location is specifically. But how do you think that operators should diversify their offerings to keep up with those ever-changing, unpredictable guest patterns?
I mean, this is where I think the ability to move from short-term to mid-term really, really comes in
100%.
a lot of ways. I mean, we did it because Washington has a very distinct rhythm to its market. So there are times when the short-term ADR is so high and times when nobody's coming and it's so low. So our ability to get renters in for an extended period of time relieves a lot of pressure. And again, we are property managers, so our obligation is really to generate revenue. Can't generate revenue unless there's an occupant. So our ability to be flexible that way ensures that we can provide the service that we're providing and generate revenue for our owners.
And you're in such an event-driven market as well. Is there any other type of approach that you have when you are in such a high traffic area like that?
I mean, again, I would just say it's like knowing when those events are and making sure that if you are doing this sort of shift from midterm to short term, you want to be available for short term where the regulations allow at the time that there's events, because I don't know if anybody else's hotel room this evening was more expensive than it was the other evenings because of the Oasis concert, but I mean, you know.
Amazing.
And yeah, and I think for us, we've also just moved into areas like, which is high-end tourism, like which is one-night stays, which people are going through. Like, for example, if you ever go to New Zealand, Lake Tekapo is, everyone wants to go there. So it's a drive-through destination, right, where it's a one night, you know, there's 500 properties and 450 of them on Airbnb, right, or short term. So it's a market that we've looked at because it's never going to be it's never going to be regulated or restricted, because the whole town's wholly livelihood survives on that market. And that's been, for us, our greatest push to move us aside from some of the other markets which were regulated. You know, Christchurch is bringing in now, you've got to get a resource consent. So it's a whole lot of complexities where we're thinking, okay, well, let's mitigate our risk and go to some areas that will actually give us a high return because they've got a high tourism turnover.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. And you were talking about getting on to the different channels. And Jason, you had said previously that OTA and property management business models can sometimes conflict, right? So what do diversified operators do differently to protect themselves?
Yeah, like first of all, like, I think travel industry like is full of paradox. So basically, I think like where the OTAs maybe conflict with the property manager is that like both are fighting for the direct booking. So this is where basically there is like sometimes that we have like seen very good examples of property managers that they were very basically specific on the product and the experience they offer. And based on that, they build the brand, and they build technology around that. They focus on the guest experience. They focus on the reputation and the online reputation, like not only like in one platform, like because maybe like the reputation sits like on an OTA, but not with them. So I think this is what they did like very well, and diversified in the sense of like how they approach and how they represent the company, rather than just become like OTA dependent.
Yeah, absolutely. And so to kind of riff off that, I know we talked a little bit about social media as we were prepping for this. And so are platforms like TikTok actually translating into bookings? Like what signals, traffic spikes, conversions, geo patterns tell you that it's real versus just noise?
So I think like at this point, it's very important. It comes like very similar to the previous question, is basically the brand and the offering that brings people like book directly to you. So I think like whatever like the sales channel is, maybe it's TikTok, maybe it's Instagram, maybe it's like an OTA, I think it comes to a booking and the conversion when you have a very specific offering and channels and processes and tools like for the guest to book directly with you. And this is where basically the noise is converting to bookings. If you don't have that, the noise remains noise, and maybe it brings the opposite result because you get lost on trying to create some noise, but you don't really focus on the actual job and the business and the product and the brand and the service.
Yeah, all goes back to that brand recognition, right? Like what Dunzi and what Phil, you guys were both saying you've
Yeah,
done
I
so
think
well.
I think the brand for us, because we're a family company, I've said to my son who manages the brand of the company, is about how do we keep the integrity of our brand, right? And also for us as a family, it's more also what's inside comes out, right? You know what I mean? Because the brand is us as a family, so it's really important. And we have to bring that to our culture and our company. You got to bring that whole thing out. And it's a struggle at times, right? Because you get really pissed off sometimes, right? With the cleaners or whatever, you know what I mean? But I think having that brand and being on social media, you know, all of those, trying to be across all platforms as much as possible. And we're really working hard to create our own booking platform to a higher standard.
Incredible. And with you expanding and having some of those auxiliary businesses, what have been some of the development, startup costs, challenges, lessons you've learned while doing that?
Not to do?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, you know, the interesting thing is this industry is about making the mistakes. And do you know what I say to people? If you're afraid to make the mistakes, don't be in this business, right? Because you're going to make them, and you're going to make a lot of them. Right?
That's just life, right?
Absolutely. What you have to do is make those mistakes, put it to your team and say, hey guys, how can we do that better?
Yep.
But being conservative and say, I'm not going to grow because I made that mistake last time and I don't want to expand, that is, you know, it's interesting. I love what David, the runner, you know what I mean? His motivation, listen to him and I'm thinking, wow, he's an inspiration because, you know, that type of thing. Don't be afraid to go out there and get it.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's the exciting part about this industry.
Absolutely.
Make the mistakes, guys, and learn from it.
Yeah, come at it, try it again with the lessons that you learned from your initial try. Dunzi, do you have anything on your end in regards to the ways that you've expanded into additional business opportunities within Sojourn?
Not really. I mean, I would say, yeah, if you don't take the risk, then you don't get the reward, as they say. But again, I would just caution you as to every time you enter a new business channel in any way that you are creating greater complexity in your business. So you have to be prepared for that and map it out before you enter it and be prepared to make mistakes.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we're kind of wrapping up, we got less than 5 minutes left. What we want to kind of end on is just going back into some of the market volatility, right? So when occupancy dips or regulations spike, life happens, the world changes, what strategies outside of anything we've already touched on, what other strategies are you utilizing to maintain that cash flow?
I mean, I would say, I've said it time and time again, we really like, to the extent we can, just fill our units. And, you know, if obviously midterm is less, creates less anxiety because once they're in there for a while. But you have to know also, like during COVID, you know, there was a huge push in the industry to move to 30-day because people were not doing short term. So to talk about it in the abstract is really, you just have to be flexible and nimble, and the more channels that you have to generate that guest and to get somebody into your place, the better. So you just have to be creative, whether it means that you're, you know, depending on what the event is and what the result is, whether it's going to lead, you know, then going to the right place to grab that guest.
I think for us, we probably grew the fastest nearly during the COVID period.
Oh, wow.
Because the issue was that you have to learn to actually also read the room ahead, because at the end of the day, if you're going to sit back and do nothing, so the opportunity came around for us, everyone was getting out of short term, so the properties were fully furnished, ready to go. They wanted out of short term, so we were able to just take over the leases of them, and we knew that we could hold. We had an advantage because we did have cash revenue that we had kept in front, but we were able to hold, so we knew then in 3 years' time, we were then now we had the largest portfolio after COVID.
You just knew how to play the long game. Yeah.
Yeah, but well, like for me, like I think it's time for property managers to revisit the definition of what is a property manager in terms of accommodation. I think like we have seen property managers focusing on basically providing one basically model, like commission-based or providing the services X, Y, Z, and I think they do much more than that. And they offer much more solutions and services to the owners. So like if we talk about cash flow, we have to talk about more recurring revenues, more stable revenues, predictable revenues. So you have tenants that you manage, in any case, if it's a guest, a short, medium, long-term tenant, you can be the one servicing this tenant. You also like do compliance, you do maintenance. You basically the guardian of the asset at some point. And I think if you revisit what you're offering and what you pitch on a property owner, I think this is where you can come to the traditional model of a property manager, but at the same time you can build some recurring like revenues from this kind of services that they are not like overselling or they are not adding anything more than the optimum service that property managers are offering now.
Yeah, yeah. And as we are closing up, if you had one last thing that you wanted everyone in the audience today to take away from the panel, what do you think would be your parting advice?
I would say, as I've said before, don't be afraid of the opportunity, or take it when the opportunity comes, grab it and run with it. A bit like what David said, you know what I mean? You know, he was about to give up so many times, you know what I mean? But he didn't. Here he is, you know, world champion, you know what I mean? So don't ever, no matter what life throws at you, right? It's what you do with it.
Keep running the race, yeah.
I would just say, given like the diversity of the markets that we're in, is really what you have to do is know your market. Know your market, know who it attracts, look at whatever the crisis is and how does that change your analysis, and then just figure out what is the best way to leverage that crisis.
Be flexible, right?
Be
Learn
flexible,
how to adjust
be
to
nimble.
it. Yeah, be nimble.
I think like
Do yoga.
maybe wrapping up everything is like define your product, build standards around that, be very specific on the service you're offering, build a brand around your product, and then distribute and go like to the market with a very specific offering. Yeah. I think that's a flow and methodology that we have to go back rather than focusing on revenue or operations or like cost, all of these kind of things.
Incredible, incredible. Well, thank you guys so much, Phil, Dunzi, Jason. It's been wonderful getting to experience this knowledge with you guys. Thank you, everyone. I hope you enjoy the rest of your time at Guestival, and thank you so much for attending this panel with us.
Thank you very much.
You did great. Thank you.